Did you know that your plastic waste might not stay in your country? In fact, after 2018, many Southeast Asian countries suddenly became major destinations for global plastic waste. This is because China, that used to be the world's biggest importer of plastic waste for recycling it cheaply, stopped accepting plastic waste starting that year. As a result, rich countries sent their waste to Southeast Asia like Malaysia, Indonesia, Thailand, Vietnam, and the Philippines instead, overwhelming those countries' ability to handle it. So today, we'll explain how this global plastic waste trade works, why disputes started in Southeast Asia, and how international law like the Basel Convention tries to control it.
Now, let's talk about how plastic waste actually ends up crossing borders. In many developed countries, recycling plastic is expensive and complicated. Sorting, cleaning, and processing plastic properly costs a lot of money. So instead of dealing with it locally, companies look for cheaper options. One of those options is exporting plastic waste to other countries under the label of recyclable materials. But here is the issue. Not all plastics can be recycled. A lot of it is mixed, dirty, or low-quality plastic that recycling facilities can't really process. Once this waste arrives, local systems struggle to cope. Recycling plants get overloaded, and whatever can be processed is often dumped illegally, burned, or left in open landfills. So, when the label says recyclable, but the reality says otherwise, that's when everything starts going wrong. So, when all this plastic waste started coming in, people began to notice something wasn't right. Containers arrived, labeled as recyclable, but when they were opened, it was just mixed household trash. Stuff like that can't really be recycled at all. Malaysia saw this happening and decided to do something about it. In 2019, they literally sent the containers back to the countries they came from, the US, the UK, and Canada, basically saying this isn't our problem to deal with. The Philippines had a similar situation with Canada. For years, containers sat at the port labeled as recyclables, but inside was just normal garbage. After waiting for so long, the Philippines even warned that diplomatic ties could be affected if the waste wasn't taken back. In the end, Canada agreed to take the containers back in 2019. So these moments matter because they show a shift. Southeast Asian countries stopped quietly accepting this and started pushing the responsibility back to the countries that sent the waste in the first place.
To address these problems, international law plays an important role, especially the Basel Convention. The Basel Convention is an international treaty that regulates the movement of hazardous waste across borders. In 2019, the convention was amended to include plastic waste. This means exporting countries must now obtain prior informed consent before shipping plastic waste. In theory, this gives importing countries more power to reject unwanted waste and improves transparency. However, enforcement remains a challenge. Illegal shipments still happen due to mislabeling, weak monitoring, and lack of cooperation. So while the Basel Convention is a start for it, it is not a complete solution.
The global plastic waste trade has had serious impact on Southeast Asia. Environmentally, it pollutes our land, rivers, and ocean. Plastic waste that cannot be recycled is often dumped illegally or banned, releasing toxic substances into the air. Socially, communities living near dumping sites and informal recycling facilities face serious health risks, including respiratory problems and contaminated water sources. And economically, Southeast Asian countries are forced to spend public money managing waste that they did not even produce. This situation highlights a deeper issue of global inequality and environmental injustice. Countries that consume the most plastic often shift the environmental burden to developing nations. So, in conclusion, the plastic waste trade dispute isn't just about waste management, but It is also about responsibility. Real solution require reducing plastic production at the sources, enforcing international laws like the Basel Convention, and ensuring that countries manage their own waste instead of exporting the problem elsewhere. A fair global system begins when countries stop exporting their waste and started owning their responsibility.